Hello and welcome back to my Hawaiian Grand Prix toy box. Before we begin, I want to thank you for all of the positive feedback you folks gave me on the first episode. I'm always a little nervous when I start a new series because I never know for sure if it's something you'll be interested in. So the fact that there are so many of you who are excited about it is really encouraging to me, so thank you. Today I've got Stitch with me once again, and my plan for this toy box is to lay down the rest of the track for my course and begin blocking in the terrain. So I don't have any new groundbreaking tricks to share with you today, but I do have a few tips that I'll share that go along with the trick that I gave you last time, and that should make it worthwhile to watch this episode. So we're going to come out over here where we left off last time. And the first thing we're going to need, I forgot that I didn't put the Y in there. So I need to scroll back over here to the left and pick that up. And that's this racetrack split piece. Because we need to give the player some width to be able to dodge the mines coming down the hill. So that's what this is for. And then as we go up the hill, we'll start with the wide track ramp start. And we connect onto that. And then we go to this piece for the ramp, and we're going to do 4 of these. This goes up 1 block in height, so I need 4 of those. And then the bow on the bottom and the end piece, the arch on the top, each go up 1 block, so we've gone up a total of 6 blocks now. And that's kind of important. All right, and then at this point, we'll go ahead and put in another Y. And to save scrolling, we'll go ahead and pick this piece up, put it back, and that puts me right back in this drawer where I need to be. Oops, we want to center this. So just like that. Okay. And then we'll do a very long piece. And then at this point, we're going to put in a curve. And I want this to be a ramp. So we'll do the curve left and we'll begin descending. And by the way, when I build my tracks, usually I'm building the terrain along with it so that I can kind of see where everything goes. But since I've already done that, I'm organizing this a little bit differently for you. So this isn't normally how I build my track. Normally I'm doing the terrain and the racetrack at the same time, so I can kind of make it all fit. But since, like I said, I've already done that and I know where things need to be, it makes it easy just to lay out the track, and then we'll go back and put the terrain in afterwards. Okay, so we've built a ramp there, and now we're back down to the main ground level. And we're going to put in 2 of these racetrack right pieces, followed by a turn. And then we begin going up the hill towards the volcano. So once again, we put in the bowed piece, and then we need 4 of these ramps because we're going up a total of 6 blocks. And that's 4. And that's 5. And the 6th one was this piece. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. All right. And then we got to give the player a little bit of time once they come up to the hill, because when they come up to the crest of the hill, they don't see what's up here till they get to this point. So a very long racetrack piece gives them a second or so to kind of take in everything before we put the split in. So they've got a moment to decide which direction they want to go. And we'll go ahead and put in the rim path first, because this will kind of determine the other one. And again, normally I would build this with the terrain, but since I've already done that, I already know what I need. So we have the long piece, and then we're going to put in the curve on the other side. Like that. And then we'll come back over here and pick up this split. Like that. All right, and then it's just a matter of connecting these two pieces, which are coincidentally right across from each other, so that makes it kind of easy. So this goes down the hill into the volcano, or actually on this end it comes up out of the volcano. Like that. And then we'll come over to the other side and do the same thing. And then if I did that right, it should be two of these very long pieces. Just like that. And that goes across the floor of the volcano. And since we're going across the volcano floor, let's go ahead and style this a little differently. I'm not going to change my theme, but we'll go ahead and set this to the remote headquarters road. This is from the Toy Box Takeover set. And the same with this one. And then so that it looks like we're going off-road, we'll set these to the X Games dirt track. And I think adding some variety in your road textures makes it kind of interesting, especially where it kind of makes sense to do that, because it adds some visual interest, and it also helps to distinguish different areas of the track, so you can kind of tell where you are in the toy box. And that's kind of important, because on a track like this, actually on a lot of tracks, they tend to spread out, and so you end up with a very large toy box. And it just makes sense to try to define different areas to help the player know where they are. Okay, so there is that piece. Let's go ahead and pick that up again and put it down. All right, and then I need a medium piece. And I need a very short piece. And then we're going to put the downslope coming off the volcano. And I thought it would be fun to make this really steep. So we're going to use the steep arch for this one. And because we're using the steep one here, which goes down 2 blocks, we only need 2 of these. And then the steep bow at the bottom. So that comes down 6 blocks in height in a hurry, which is kind of nice. All right, and then immediately we're going to go right into a turn. So like that, and then a long piece. And 2 very short pieces. And then we're going to come back and pick up this curve and put another one down on the other side. Okay. And then once again, let's pick up this long piece. And again, this saves us just a lot of scrolling. Actually, it's the short piece I want to do next. We need one of these followed by the long track. And this gets us up to the temple. And then we put our split in, so the player has their choice of which way they want to go through the temple. On this side, we're going to do a racetrack left. And on the other side, we're going to put in, you'll notice that's the same length as that. So we're going to put in 3 of these. There's 2, there's 3. And then we'll put in a racetrack left. And on the other side, we'll put in 3 of these. This creates kind of a gap between the tracks that we can actually put a little chasm in there, which makes it interesting. If you saw the playthrough video, you know what I'm talking about. And then we'll put in a medium. And then the turn. And at this point, oh wow, actually let me put that in. Cool. I thought I was going to collide with this. Let's go ahead and pick this up and move this out of the way for right now. I'm going to put this down on the beach, facing towards the boardwalk. And both of these, go ahead and move them down below the terrain, out of the way. Again, this is the original terrain block, and we're going to move that a little bit later. Hopefully in this episode, we'll kind of see how it goes. All right, so there's our turn, and then we're going to pick up this medium piece here. Drop that back down again and put one more on this side. And then we're going to do a racetrack left, followed immediately by a racetrack right. And that's so we can put that ramp here with the Ring of Fire. And then we need a very long straight piece, like this, and we're almost done laying track down. Coming back around to the beginning of the course. So we do that, and then one more long piece. Heading out towards the bay. Another turn, so we'll pick this piece up. You can see how that keeps you from having to scroll in that drawer. So I find that a very helpful tip. Like that. Flip this around. And if we've done it right, we just need one more very long racetrack piece to connect this to the start of the track. Just like that. And there we go. So now the track is in. And let's go ahead and style this to be the Lilo's Tropical Paradise. All right, and there is our course. And as you can see, it is a very big course. So now we'll go ahead and start putting in the terrain. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do before I put down any terrain is set my theme. And the default grass theme is okay, but it's kind of generic. You see this all the time. And so what I want to do is I'm going to use the Tri-State Area terrain from Phineas and Ferb, and I'll put that power disc down. And I do not want to switch that entire world to my theme. But we'll come down here, and I'm going to go ahead and style this block to set that to be the theme. So Tri-State Area, I'll set that to be my theme. And I just think that looks better. But if you don't have that disc or you want to use a different kind of grassy terrain, that's just fine. All right, so we're going to start with this long flat terrain block, and this is the same block that I used for the beach. And I'm going to set this down lined up with the edge of it on this side and at the same height as the original terrain block, and we'll slide this out right on the edge like that. And then I'm going to move to the left one, and we're going to use this large piece, and I'm lining it up with the edge of the block there on the right. And we're going to put 2 of those down, and then we're just going to go ahead and that little trick doesn't always work. Put down a long row of these to get us out to the edge of the toy box here. So like that. That little flick trick doesn't always work. That's a shame. It's not working at all now. There we go. Not that time. Alright, well that's enough of the basic terrain. I don't think we're going to get too much more out of this area today. So the next thing we'll do is come over here, and we're going to fit in the terrain along the coast. So we're going to put one of these down, kind of like this triangular fashion like that. And then the long tiny block will go in here, one like that, one like that. And then we're going to scroll over to the left and pick up the cliff edge pieces. We're going to be jumping back and forth between these areas a lot today. So I'll be picking up a lot of pieces and putting them back down. That's going to sit on the edge, and you'll notice I've got it sticking out away from the road a little ways. That gives the player some breathing room for when they skid around that corner and they don't go right off the edge of the toy box immediately. And then this little outer curve comes in here in that corner. And then we just fill in some of these canyon wall pieces around it. And you'll notice I'm putting the smaller pieces here on the inside where they're not as visible. And then we'll put a row of these along the front edge of this. And it's not so much that the player is going to see this side of it. It's that they're looking at it from up here. And so that just looks nicer than a straight edge along the front of that. There we are. Okay. Now for the first hill, we're going to use this short extra wide canyon wall, and we're going to line this up with the front edge of that split piece like this. I can't go any further this way because I run into that ridge. So we're going to go as close as we can get to that, just like that. And actually, while we're right here, just to save a little time, we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So just like that. Okay, now to save a little time so I don't have to scroll, we'll come back over here and pick up this piece, put it back down, and go to the left 2 pieces, and we find this piece. So I'm going to put this down just like this, 2 of those, and then scroll back to the right, and we got this large piece here. And you'll notice that puts us right up against the edge of that ramp there. And if we try to go left any further, it's going to run into that. So this sits in there perfectly. And then we'll put in 2 of these long tiny blocks, followed by a tiny block like that. And you can see what I'm doing is covering up the gap now that's underneath the ramp. And we'll come back over here and pick this piece up one more time, put it down. going to put just kind of a nice edge on the front of that so it doesn't look so flat. To me, that looks a little bit better. All right, and then in this corner, we want to put another one of these outer curves like this. And we want to cover up that side. So we'll do it like that. Then we'll put one of those on the front like that. So now we have the hill going up to the bridge. And on this side, as this comes down, the player really isn't going to see this more than likely, unless they drive off the bridge this way, which is discouraged by putting all of the rubble down there that we're going to put down later, because they'll get stuck in there. So odds are they're not going to see that. And as they come up the ramp on this side, we don't need to worry about plugging this hole, because they're not going to see that either. One of the things is when you're building a toy box this large, you're going to fill this memory up really fast. And so it's a good idea, if you're building this and it's going to be strictly a racing toy box, which mine is, you don't need to fill in every edge and everything, just the areas the player is going to see. So you can save a lot of memory doing that. So we'll go ahead and pick this big piece up and put it down, and we're going to go ahead and fill in one of these blocks just like this. And if I come over and pick this one up, we could put this right down here. But I'm not going to do that. And I'll explain why here. What this block does is this fills in completely the gap between the top and bottom track. And I'll put it down temporarily. And the problem with this is, actually there's a couple of problems. Number one, if you remember while I was racing, the weapon generators sit here, the vehicle weapon generators. And as I picked one up, and I'll go ahead and play that clip for you so you can see it. As I picked that up and came around the corner, I shot Mater and Lightning McQueen, and Lightning McQueen went flying up in the air. And if you look at the progress track at the top of the track and watch that throughout the rest of the race, you'll notice Lightning McQueen doesn't move. And what happened, if you remember from the last episode, I told you that the game AI will tolerate cars driving on this upper track, but it prefers them to be on the bottom track. And so it's always looking for opportunities to bring them back to the bottom track. And what happened when I came around this corner and shot Lightning McQueen, he went flying up in the air, and the game took that opportunity to pull him back down to the main track. Well, guess what? That stuck him right in the middle of the terrain block, and he couldn't move. And so he was stuck for the rest of the race. And I kind of did that on purpose when I built the track, hoping something like that would happen, because I wanted to demo that situation to you and show you what happens. And so what you really ought to do is, I'll go ahead and delete this terrain block. It takes a little bit of extra memory, but what you want to do when you're going to run into cases like that is use this piece here. And so from the player's standpoint, as they're driving up on the top, it looks like flat terrain, solid terrain. They don't realize that there's actually kind of a open area underneath. And so when the game AI encounters a situation like that, then it wants to go ahead and bring them down to the bottom track. Now the cars won't get stuck. And we can go ahead and close it off over on this side so that if the player happens to get under here, it doesn't look weird. And that can happen to the player if you're coming around this corner and you slide off the track and plummet to your death. Guess what? The game AI is going to put you back on the main track when it respawns you. And if there's a solid terrain block sitting here, you're stuck. And the only thing you can do is abort the race. So this way, it creates an open area under here where you can prevent that from happening. Now, back over here, I'm going to leave this block solid because there's no vehicle weapon generators here. There's no opportunity for the player or any of the cars to drive off the track I'm going to have the edge of the track lined up with foliage and stuff. So you don't really have to worry about that here, but as soon as they pick up those weapon generators here, and we have the edge of the cliff over here, you can run into that possibility. And so it's a good idea to go ahead and leave this area of the track open. And you would go ahead and fill this in. And I'm not going to do this entire thing and show you that. But what you see over here, though, is I've got an area of the track here where there's no track underneath this. So we could come up to one of the larger pieces that are solid and tall and put that in here and fill that gap in. That saves a little memory, and also if the cars are down here, that kind of prevents them a little bit from wanting to cheat and go that way and take a shortcut across. So that helps with that a lot. I can't really do another one of those though, because if I do, you can see it's overlapping that curve now, and that'll cause a problem. So you could, though, put in a couple of these and fill it in that way. And you can kind of do that all along here if you wanted, but you don't have to. So that should probably be left open. And then this piece here would go over top of the track. And you'll notice if I try to put a solid piece here to the right of that, over here, that's tall, it's going to cut the corner of that track, so that would be a problem. So we would want to do this. And it looks like I'm going to end up filling all this in for you anyway. But from the player's standpoint, as they're driving on top, as I said, this is all solid. And as they come around this corner and drive off this cliff, for all they know, that's a solid cliff wall. The player's not going to be in a position where they're going to look back and see that there's actually a tunnel there. And so that's helpful to know. And let me just go ahead and put the rest of these two pieces down. And I'll fill in these offline later. Okay. And then we go ahead and put the front of the cliff face on there. So I'll come back over here and pick up my cliff, the cliff wall, and put that back down. Then we'll put this over here on the edge like that. And you would line this up all the way down. Now for the canyon, I don't know if you've ever noticed this before, but these pieces are actually, it looks like they're designed to fit the curves because they fit perfectly. And that's true with this one, that's true with this one on the outside edge. They fit those curves perfectly, as you can see. For myself, I like to leave a little bit of room, so I like to put about a block over that way and a block over this way, and leave a little space, because unless you take that turn perfectly, you're going to have a problem. Be bouncing off these walls or driving up onto the walls. And as you've probably observed from my other videos, I don't drive very well. So I like having a little of extra space. And fortunately, you can do that. And it still works and looks pretty good. You just have to put a couple of little spacers in here, like that. And then the same is true on this side. Rather than put this right up to those corners, I like to go about a foot back. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it right up against the track on this edge. And so on this side, we line that up. There we go. And that leaves a nice kind of a spacing there. It just gives a little bit of extra space for players that don't drive very well, like young kids or people like me that just suck at driving. Alright, so then this I'm going to put down here like that, which means we need a little piece in here to plug that hole. We'll do the same thing over on this other side, except I need 2 of those. Alrighty. And actually, we're going to put one of these flat pieces in here right along this edge of the road like that. I think actually I used this piece. Yeah. And while we're here, let's go ahead and put a nice little front on that so it doesn't look so abrupt. And now we can go ahead and fill in the rest of this. And we'll pick this piece up down here. And I'm trying to fill this in a little bit up here. Like that. And once again, we'll put this small edge there on the inside. Okay, and you'll notice I'm not filling in this edge of it over here, and I'm not filling in this edge because the player will never see that if they're racing. Again, if this is not going to be a strict racing toy box, then you probably want to fill in some of these gaps, but you don't need to if you're just going to race, which is the purpose of my toy box. So you can save a lot of memory, and that's important because, again, like I said, this is a very large racetrack, and you don't have a lot of space, a lot of memory, and you've got a lot of space you've got to fill. So you have to be very careful. So just focus on those areas that the player can see. And areas that they can't see, you can leave them empty. You can leave them unfinished. It doesn't matter. See, they're only ever going to see that. They're never going to see the ugliness from the top. Alright, so the player then comes around the corner. And this time, if Lightning McQueen got blown up here, and the game put him back down on the main track, he's all good to go. He can follow the track and come out over here. So that looks really good. Alright, so then we need to finish off the edge of this. And not that the player is going to see it coming from this direction, but as they come down that ramp over there by the bridge, looking this direction, they might just see that. So it's kind of important to make sure that looks somewhat finished. And we'll go ahead and do that. And for right now, I'll just stick this on the front like that, because I'm not exactly sure how that's going to look. I haven't built the rest of this just yet. And I think that'll have to be our stopping point for today, because our time is pretty much up. Next Friday, I'll continue placing all of the terrain, and I'll try to wrap up the build exercise for this toy box. Hopefully. We'll see how it goes. In the meantime, I want to thank you for watching and invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking my photo in the lower right corner. You can also find more of my Disney Infinity toy boxes by visiting my blog or my YouTube channel. Until next time, take care.